Welcome to TGIF.
I love our title today, Family Tradition. We have some great family traditions.
Yeah.
Some are fun, some are funny, some are serious, but then there's those that just mean so much to me.
And that takes us to our word of the day. Our word is sincere. And when you look at the word sincere, I think most of us know kind of what it is, but like you even said, sometimes in a letter you'll say sincerely yours.
Yes, and sign it sincerely yours.
Yeah, what is
Do you
that
know what
mean?
you're really saying?
Yeah, and so sincere, if you look up, it means without hypocrisy. So within this letter that I just wrote you, I'm giving it to you in genuine. Genuine is also a part of it. It's very distinguishable. So that's what Paul is saying, and that's where we're going to go today, is to Paul's letter to 2 Timothy. And our chapter and verse today is chapter 1, verse 5. I'm reminded of your sincere faith, which first lived in your grandmother Lois and in your mother Eunice. And I am persuaded now lives in you also. Wow, that's Paul's letter to Timothy. And as Paul is beginning to engage Timothy in this letter, we see a lot of dynamics coming up. And he's getting back to the ancestral lineage of the family. And when we talk about those ancestors, an obvious one that pops up of how things pass from generation to generation is when God calls himself the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so we see 3 generations laid out there. But here we're in the New Testament, and Paul is writing to Timothy, and he's using 3 generations again as an example: Lois, Eunice, and Timothy. And so it is perfect as we see Paul has a fondness for Timothy, and we know that along the missionary journeys that Paul took, he encountered Lois and Eunice and went through the process of conversion. We don't know a lot about Lois and Eunice, so there's not a lot of details, but we do know that Timothy's mother, that she was Jewish and his father was Greek. Talk about a dynamic in a family bringing together traditions. Just think about that. Greek traditions and Jewish traditions, and how a child could be so confused. Okay, Dad, Mom, you both have your traditions. What's the right traditions, or what's the best traditions? So there's a lot of confusion, I think, when we talk about traditions in family, and it's very easy to get caught up in some family traditions that really don't have a lot of meaning for when we talk about eternal examples. So.
Because I think when 2 families come together in general, you're always going to have a lot of differences, whether it's cultural or their own traditions or their own faith. But think about that child that comes from these families coming together. You're right.
Find something genuine.
Yeah,
within.
what are we really focused on in the midst of that? Because I think families today, there's so many things that they can find to argue about. One side of the family, the in-laws. We've all heard that before. But I like how this hones into what really matters, and it's that genuine faith that's being passed down.
Yeah, and I think that in today's culture, in our texting and everything that goes on behind the screens, I think we get very caught up sometimes in allowing some of our faith traditions to shine in moments when things are going bad or there's struggles. Are we being genuine with our kids that it is hard? Life is hard, and you're going to have struggles, but when you have Christ, and when you're focused on Christ, and when you're digging deep into God's Word, I think there's a genuineness. And one of the things we were reading is how genuine people, they get noticed by people. They really do. When you're authentic, when you're genuine, when you're sincere, there's something about the people around you. They start taking notice. They're like, wow, he's a little different, or she responds differently than most people around. And I think that in general, that people notice that.
And I think we could all, just with the way you describe that right now, I think all of us, somebody could pop in our head. I think we could all think of somebody who is that model to us in that. And it's, why don't we strive to be that model for others? Not to be better, not to say we're all that. It's that in humility to want to be an example of that genuine faith.
I think really when we start putting faith into the equation, things really get complicated and they get much more difficult. But faith can inspire others. And that's the other thing that's really important here. When's the last time your faith inspired somebody? And I think that as we look at being parents and grandparents and great-grandparents, we can look at these generations and how our faith is being passed down. Because we have talked about that, right?
Right.
Our kids.
And I don't know that we take it serious, that we've always taken it serious. And even you watching, some of you are grandparents and great-grandparents and even great-great-grandparents. It's not over. What are we passing down to the next generation? Because we want to be like Lois and Eunice and Timothy, that 3 generations of faith. And the brokenness of the world kind of creeps in and makes it complicated. But if we can just take our eyes off all the other things, the differences between families, the things that we choose to disagree on and choose to go our separate ways, what if faith was all that mattered?
Yeah, it's interesting because Paul picked it up. Paul saw this sincerity, this genuineness in Lois and Eunice and Timothy, and he's acknowledging it. And
that's what I want to pass down.
Exactly. And you and I may not be in a Timothy position, but think about the next generation or the next generation beyond us. If this faith continues to grow and get stronger, somebody gets raised up that does something like Timothy, and you're like, wow, how you can be a part of that.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a couple lessons, right? There's 2 lessons.
When we're passing down our faith to our children and our grandchildren, the first being, teach them what you believe.
Yeah. That's hard because we want to teach them a lot about scriptures, but sometimes we don't always know. But when we talk about teach them up in the ways they should go, and they will return. This that idea of giving them a good grounding, a foundation before they go out into the world. You only have them a few years before the world gets a hold of them, and the world's going to do what they want with them. And so you've got to plant some of those.
And I think it's important that we do not think it's the school, the church, or Sunday school's job to do it. Yes, church is about sharing the stories and faith and that growing deeper, the scripture, but don't expect others to do it. If what you believe, it is your responsibility to pass down, whether it's your kids, your grandkids, or your great-grandkids.
But I'm not a Bible scholar, and that's what I usually hear is I just don't know enough about the Bible. Well, teach them what you do know. Start there. And wow, what about growing together with your kids and your grandkids and learning? We talk about it when we were talking about getting our kids into Sunday school. Well, we needed to get ahead of them, and so we started teaching kindergarten.
So we started teaching Sunday school.
Teach Sunday school, and you're going to learn. And just stay ahead of them a little bit. Or grow together.
Kids Church has plenty of openings for volunteers. So there you go.
Good plug.
And the second lesson is live what you believe. So teach them what you believe, but live what you believe. But I say, tell them what they should do, right? Do what I say and not what I do. How many times have you said that? I know I've said that.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
2 thumbs down.
We are responsible for our actions, the actions that our kids and our grandkids see. So what you're saying, what you're doing, what they see you reading, what they see you watching, you are passing that down to them as that's okay. And that's hard because we live in a culture that everything is available to us.
Yeah. So live what you say. So if I'm chewing out the next door neighbor, or if I'm chewing out somebody about politics, my kids or grandkids are watching that and saying, oh, that's normal, that's okay because dad does that or grandpa does that, that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do that as I grow up. No, it's not okay.
And the words that we say. And in our house, we had code words for words that were not allowed to be said. And if you want to know those, they're really kind of funny. So just ask me those when you see me. They're really kind of fun. I'll share those with you.
And we talked about living out or professing, that has to be lived out, what we profess. And so if we truly believe that 3 things remain, faith, hope, and love, if those are the 3 things we are professing each and every Sunday or each and every day, then we need to live those out. Tell your kids about your faith. Tell them about your hope. And tell them about the love that you have and the love that God has for them. Faith, hope, and love, that's all that remains.
And as parents, it's a responsibility that we have, but I think there's also a responsibility that grandparents and great-grandparents have, because in different situations, sometimes it is the grandparents raising the kids.
And we're talking about a legacy here, right? We're talking about leaving a legacy of your faith, what you stand on, and that's good, and that's helpful.
What are they going to remember about you when you're gone? Is it going to point back to genuine faith, or just all the great things that you did in your job, or what you accomplished, or all the money that you saved up in your retirements and your IRAs? Or is it going to come back to Dad or Grandpa or great-grandpa? This is what I remember. This is the memory I have. That's a legacy. That's the legacy we want to leave.
From one generation to the next. That's where the joy should come from.
And it's not easy. We always tell you, we don't bring anything that we think's easy. This is because we struggle with it as well. But planting those seeds. So continue to plant those seeds, even if you don't see what any results or any harvest. God is at work in it all. And in eternity, it's all going to be light. Light is going to be shed on all of it. Exactly. And it's worth the wait.
It is.
So we leave you with a question, and it's pretty simple. So what are you passing down? Is it genuine faith, or is it all the other junk that this world throws at us? So take that. Hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next week on TGIF. Bye.
Bye.